I'd like to welcome you to the 2020 annual meeting of Historic Pella Trust. I'm Bob Zylstra, and I'm currently serving as the president of Historic Pella Trust. We're holding our annual meeting via video recording due to the COVID epidemic. It's a new format for us, and we hope you enjoy it. And special thank you to Jim Emmert for helping us create this video and providing us with the expertise on how to do that. A brief outline of what's coming in our program. I'm going to spend a few minutes talking about our major accomplishments for the 2019-2020 year. Then we'll cover a little bit of our financial summary. Jennifer Van Coten, our executive director, will lead a video tour of the Tuttle Cabin Learning Walk. Mary Van Wyk will lead a video tour of the 1950s era Strawtown Cottage that she's running as a VRBO located at 1110 Washington Street. Then Katie Douglas will lead a video tour of her 1850s era rock house at 1601 University. Particularly on the last two, I think you'll notice where they take a little bit of creativity and insight and enthusiasm and take an old, somewhat dilapidated structure and put it into wonderful new service. And we're really proud of what they've done there. A quick bit about the major Historic Pella Trust role and mission. We're normally confused with the Historical Society. We were separated in 1994 with a mission to promote and protect the buildings. And that's really our distinctive feature. We have a very similar mission as the Pella Historical Society, and our focus on heritage and our Dutch heritage in particular. But our focus is really on real estate, architecture, and what that means to not only to our organization, but to the community of Pella. And as we often like to say, the buildings we're enthused about is where they were talking Dutch when they built the buildings. Currently, Historic Pella Trust has a 9-member board. In addition to me, there's Matt McCullough, who is our vice president. Bruce Borchi is our secretary. Bruce Hosteen is our treasurer. The other board members are Dodie Boat, Dwayne Rempe, Lila Turnbull, Wayne Steenstra, Mary Van Wyk. Ron Rietveld and Ralph Jarsma are members emeritus and still have a very active interest in what we do. And for you, if you have an interest becoming much more involved in Historic Pella Trust, we invite you to contact us to see what's involved in becoming a board member. You can reach us at the contact location at our website, which is at www.historicpellatrust.org. So now the major accomplishments for our 2019 and 2020 year. First on these is the use of conservation easements. Historic Pella Trust had been using conservation easements since the late 1990s. Conservation easement is an ongoing contract between Historic Pella Trust and the property owner. It prevents current owner as well as future owners of a property to a commitment where they will take care of, do good maintenance on the property, and prevent it from being torn down. We recommitted ourselves to this process with the conservation easement program we started using 2 years ago, and this year we had a particularly good year where we had 4 new conservation easements. The first of these was the Pella Brick and Drain Tile House at 222 Oskaloosa. This was a house that was built by the Pella Brick and Drain Tile Company and its owner Herman Rietveld. The second was the old blacksmith shop that's located at 914 Franklin Street that was recently sold by Bobby Klein. And before he sold it, Bobby arranged to make sure we had a conservation easement on that. And that's the old house that's located at the northeast corner of West Market Park. The third is the Elko Van Houten House. This is located at 306 East First Street. It's currently owned by Arvin Van Reenen. And the last is the Rock House at 1401 University, where a conservation easement was put on it as part of the sales agreement with the Douglas family. Second project or accomplishment is the Collegiate Historic District. This has been something we've talked about for the last 3 or 4 years at our annual meeting. It has continued to move, although moving admittedly slowly. But here we hope to have an entire neighborhood of Pella protected with a covenant that basically is supported by a city ordinance, which puts a zoning overlay in order to protect the buildings in that. And this is going to be covering the area generally between downtown Pella and Central College. The third accomplishment is the Tuttle Cabin Learning Walk. You'll see more of that in the video in a few minutes, but it's at our 1843 Tuttle Cabin, where we have a walkway now completed between the cabin and the walkway, or the Sunken Garden Park. It's available to walkers, and we've seen walkers of all ages enjoying that. Really a very nice wandering path through an old alleyway. We have plans in the future to be putting in signage and upgrading the foliage and plantings around that. Mentioned we purchased the Pella brick and drain tile house at 222 Oskaloosa. We treat that as a major accomplishment because we're quite certain that without our involvement that house would have been demolished. We're now hoping to find a suitable buyer for this cute little house. It's a special part of South Pella. It's an old house. It's got a nice heritage of how it was built and why it was built. And we think the examples we have in our videotape later in the program are wonderful examples about how a creative buyer can come in, refurbish them, fix them up, and put them to good new use. We celebrated our 25th anniversary celebration this year with Dave Baker, an Iowa historian, who entertained us with an engaging presentation on the old history of South Pella. We've also started planning for the future for the Soul Sleeper Church. This is an 1860 era old church, obviously. It's located just behind the U.S. Bank at 824 Franklin Street. We're saying goodbye and thank you to a longtime renter, and that's Alfred Post and his business Pella Books. We're planning to rent this business location out to interested parties. They should contact us again at office@historicpellatrust.org if they have an interest in using this building and renting this building. During the year, we opened the Tuttle Cabin for several events, including the Christmas season, where we had for weaving and spinning demonstrations. We had it open the 4th of July for blacksmithing and wool spinning. Then we had a Pella Christian High winter class there that was sponsored by Home Realty. We've seen a lot of growth in Facebook, where we now have 3,900 followers, and some of these postings have been viewed by over 6,500 viewers. The COVID-19 pandemic canceled our Pella-wide second grade school field trip. We normally hold these field trips in April and early May, but as a replacement, we created a virtual field trip which was available on our HPT website, and that took place of the school living history trips. We really do hope to resume these next year. We find that for the second graders, all of the second graders in town, this is a fun, hands-on history lesson that puts them in a very real situation. So that's a recap of our major accomplishments for the past year. And now if we take a look at our financial results, we closed our fiscal year at the end of 2019. The revenue for that year, the gross income, was $136,000, which comes from a combination of property sale, rent income, membership, and donations. If we exclude the $90,000 sale of the Rock House, our gross income would have been about $46,000, which is more typical of the income for our organization. The bulk of the proceeds from the sale of the Rock House were used to purchase the Pella brick and drain tile house at 222 Oskaloosa. Our gross income exceeded our expenses by almost $52,000 during the same period. If we exclude the effect of the property sale, our expenses exceeded our income, and we showed a loss of $38,000. This loss reflects an extraordinary level of spending on maintenance costs. We did a lot of repair on the Soul Sleeper Church, and in general, just I think an extraordinary year for maintenance costs. Our year-end 2019 balance sheet showed we had no debt and approximately $99,000 in cash and total assets of $260,000. During the course of this year, 2020, we've seen heavy spending on the Tuttle Learning Walk. Our fundraising has also been an enormous focus effort because we need to raise the finishing funds so we can put the signage there, as well as put a lot of the plantings in place along the walk. So we would certainly appreciate your support in our efforts to raise the final $37,000 so we can complete this $200,000 project. So this has been a short recap of our work for the year 2019 through 2020. We appreciate your generous support both financially and with your efforts. We trust that you'll find our work important enough that you will continue to support us financially and that you'll help us complete the fundraising for the Tuttle Cabin Learning Walk. So if you have questions about this presentation or would like to receive a copy of our most recent newsletter, please contact us at our contact location at www.historicpellatrust. And if you'd like to see the rest of our annual meeting, we would encourage you to connect to the associated videos. One will be on Jennifer as she leads us through a tour of the Tuttle Cabin Learning Walk. Mary Van Wyck will give us a tour of the Strawtown cottages. And we will have Katie Douglas, who will give you a tour of the work that she and her family have done at the Rock House. And so once you've seen those videos, then that will complete the presentation of our annual meeting.
Okay, welcome to the Strawtown Cottage. This is a little sitting area that we have, and I'm Mary, and this is Jennifer. Yeah. And I purchased this about 3 years ago. It was empty. Yeah, it was empty for about 10 years, and so I worked on it for almost a year. And the first people that I had here was the Pella tour of homes. So if you look over here, I had got a donation, and I made a fire pit and bought some chairs. The people that come and stay at the cottage enjoy the fire pit a lot. Okay, the cottage, the Strawtown Cottage, has a lot of history. It was originally a store, the Segment store, one of the first stores in Pella. It was all in this little area called Strawtown, and that's why I named it Strawtown Cottage. It was purchased by the Historic Trust, and they saved it from being torn down. They did a lot of work on it for several years before I purchased it. I became a member of the Historic Trust, and they were trying to decide what to do with the property, and someone said that I would make I always thought I wanted to have a bed and breakfast, and they said, "Oh, Mary, you would be good at that." And before I knew it, I was buying it. And so I made it into an Airbnb, as I don't cook, and it still has a lot of the original things, as you will see when you go inside. We're part of the original foundation of the house, and I wanted to be able to use them someplace, so I put them all out front and then put the flowers with it.
A lot of Pella's limestone was quarried out of a quarry by Des Moines and brought into town. So it has a little more color than Pella limestone would.
Exactly.
But I always say that the limestone that we use represents the foundation of our community.
Exactly. Underneath the floor, there is an old well. And it's not used anymore, but it is there, and so that is why it has the opening and the hinges. Welcome to the Strawtown Cottage. This is one of my prized possessions. It's part of the money I used from the donation I received, and people really marvel over this piece of range. And I started looking for antiques, and I found this sink and used it, but I did make everything modern, like we have the modern dishwasher. They have water in their fridge. I welcome them with some wine from our local winery, and also I have coffee cake here for them for in the morning. So I get a lot of compliments on making sure I have some of the Dutch treats, and so we have. This cupboard over here to my left was the original cupboard. It was in the hallway. When I purchased the property, there was a hallway going through the middle, and someone had told me it was a shotgun house because you could see right through the center of it. And so this cupboard was in there, and I took it and put it here. And if you notice the ceiling, it's the original floors, and was able to paint them and save them.
Yeah, it's a lot of character.
It is. I was really excited when I took down the sheetrock that the floor was, ceiling and floor was still there. So I have coffee here. They can have all the different tastes they want by the little coffee bar. As we come into the living room, you'll notice I have a table and chairs and a buffet to be able to serve a dinner if you have guests that come to see you when you're visiting us in Pella. Most of the furniture that I have has been collected from garage sales, or since I have a real estate company, people move and I buy their things, or I buy things on Pella for sale. The things that I didn't buy at a garage sale was like chairs and the Davenport, and also all the bedding is top of the line mattresses. So I have got many comments on people that have said thank you for the good night's sleep, and I've had more guests come. As you notice, the ceiling is the same as it is in the kitchen. Was able to save all of the floor joists and keep the rafters original. This is a phonograph that I got when someone moved, and I've had some of my guests say, we danced to your music with your records. And as you notice, over to my right is a old stove that I just use for decorations, and a crock in the corner for the light. The little space right here is where people leave me messages of what they liked about the cottage, and I'm always anxious to read them after they leave. This is a plaque I got from the Historic Trust for redoing the cottage and saving it. If you're staying overnight, which you most likely are, I have a laundry room with a washer and dryer that you can This is one of the favorite rooms of the people that come and stay. The shiplap on this wall is original, and the front wall is all original. The windows in the front of the whole house are original with the house, and we saved them. I had someone take them all in and redo them so that they are really in good shape and safe. I was able to find more shiplap to match what was there, so I redid the rest of the room with the shiplap. These doors are original to the cottage, and people really enjoy coming to and being able to soak in the bathtub. That was one that I found. This store was one that was in the house, so I saved it and made it so that you can use it as a shade when you're taking a bath. As you'll notice, the ceiling in here is a little lower. It was the only way we could do to get the electrical to go where it needs to go. So this room has a smaller shower. I found a dresser and had someone make a sink and out of it. I'm really excited about this place. I love having guests come, and they love to hear the history of it and tell their friends, and I've been getting referrals because of people visiting. Got this old stove from somebody that had their house for sale, and they said, Mary, you know, you really need this stove. So a lot of things I heard from my customers was, Mary, you need this, and Mary, you need that. So I bought their stove, and I bought this then, and I had a friend that gave me this
beautiful piece.
Dining area piece, yes. And then I thought I better have some Dutch things, so this wall is all Dutch pictures. This door was original to the house, and it was taken out and saved by Wayne Steensma, and he put it back in and let it stay with the house. I have a little book here, and I have it's original things of the property, like this was the kitchen, and this was some of the ceiling, and it shows how much repair it needed. And then this is my two workers that worked, and they're standing there like this and saying, what are we going to have to do next? So they were really puzzled when I said, this is what I want to do. And they say, you want to do what? And I said, yes, that's what I want to do. So I come up with things that I thought of that maybe no one else did. This here was one of my first pieces that I got. I got it from Lynn Branderhorst. She said it's really old. As you can see, it's just does not have any nails in it. It's all put together with little wood pieces. But this was my first piece that I ever had, and it was a gift from Lynn. So then I went and had the cupboards, tried to make them look old, but still functional as we came back into the kitchen. This piece was from someone that had moved along with the table in the other room, and I purchased it from them. So I wanted to have a door with a transom. So someone was tearing down their building, so I went and I bought their transom, but it was an outside door, so I made it so you couldn't see through it. I put some glaze on it. And I wanted to find something to do with the windows that I had. I put the one in the other bathroom, but I also put the other one up here with the leaded glass. And I had enough shiplap left over from what I purchased from someone. It was just a friend, and I was saying, I need a little more shiplap. And he says, Mary, I got a whole wagon load of shiplap. So he brought the wagon in, and I power washed both sides and let it dry. It was a lot of work, but it was worth it. And so as you see, this ceiling is the same as the rest of the house. The bedroom set was from Marjorie Giles. She had went to a retirement home, and so I purchased the whole set with 3 sets, and then I made the dresser into a sink like the one in the other room. And then as this here door is also comes from that building that was torn down of Harley Vermeer. And so this bathroom has a bigger shower than the other closet. And also I just had this little round hat box, I think, that I use for towels. These lamp fixtures, as you notice, I have them in the kitchen and here. I always liked them, and so I collected them from garage sales, the thrift store, so I could have one here, and I have them in this bedroom, and I also have them in the kitchen, but they are all old. This wardrobe here was one that I had when I was a child, and when we had tour of homes for Christmas, I had Jenny Moore came help me, and so she helped me with decorating the top. I still have some of the Christmas decorations up, but the picture up here is a picture of my mom when she was little. Okay. Originally, I was going to have the bed facing this way, and then my daughter, who travels a lot, she says, "Mom, you can't do that," because if you notice this board over here behind, I had a little entry here where I had an old-fashioned sink, and then the door was out there. And she says, "Mom, you won't have any room for them to get their suitcase through." So we moved the bed over this way. As you can see, it's higher up, and I covered up one of the windows that I put in so I could have more room for people to get away around. So the headboard is actually nailed to the wall or screwed to the wall. So it actually works out a lot better. So I'm glad that I got advice from several different people. Well, you need to do this and you need to do that, and I usually listened, and then I did what I wanted.
In restoration, a lot of significance is keeping the original windows. You can do a lot of insulating with the caulk, or to remove the weights and fill that in with insulation and still keep them operational and looking true to the period of the house. And another beautiful feature of the historic windows or the vintage windows is they were made with float glass, and that will have a little bit of a imperfection, but yet true clarity and beauty for the period. It shows quite a bit if they're not float glass. But if you're restoring a house, we'd love to talk to you about preserving the original windows and tightening them up so that they don't leak, and keeping that character to your house.
I have had several people tell me, "Thank you so much for saving it, and thank you for keeping the windows, thank you for keeping the ceilings, thank you for all the antiques, and we just really enjoy staying here."
The Tuttle Learning Walk is new to most people in our community. The Learning Walk is a brick path meandering through the grass alleyway that connects two historic landmarks, our 1843 Tuttle Cabin and the Sunken Garden Windmill and Park. Building was started in May of 2020, and it is getting closer to being finished. The walk is owned and maintained by the City of Pella. Tuttle Cabin is my office for Historic Pella Trust, and it serves as a mini museum. My name is Jennifer Van Coten, and I am the Executive Director for Historic Pella Trust. The seed for this project was planted several years ago by exploring the potential for this abandoned alley that sits just west of Tuttle Cabin. The Trust wanted to create an entertaining way for visitors, both adults and children, to learn about Pella's history and heritage. Conveying the history will be accomplished by placing 6 engraved signs for guests to pause and read along the way. During our planning, it became evident that the long-term maintenance would be necessary for this path. Maintenance would be expensive and a lot to handle for a small nonprofit like ours. We invited City Council members to the cabin for a fireside meeting. We showed them a large drawing done by Country Landscapes, and we proposed that we were willing to attempt raising funds to build the walk if the city was willing to own and maintain it. The council did visualize the potential of this learning walk if it were funded by Historic Pella Trust. Many civic projects of this nature fall through because of other budget priorities. The challenge was accepted and our fundraising efforts began in 2018. After several design sessions with Klinger Engineering in Pella, the details were approved by the Pella City Council. The walk has been designed to last for generations, with all the materials anchored to cement foundations, along with high-quality signage that is being prepared. The total cost of this project will be close to $200,000, including some work done on the Tuttle Cabin yard. We still need to bring in around $37,000 to finish. The project was divided into 3 phases so that the building could begin on phase 1 as soon as the funds were available to do so. With the COVID-19 pandemic slowing down contributions, we may have jumped the gun on this one because some of the funds raised were meant for phase 2 and 3. Phase 1 is done, and we will continue to work towards our goal. Along with the walk, you will find native limestone outcroppings and soon 2 limestone benches. The path has been planted with heritage flowers, bushes, and trees, many of which will be labeled so that our visitors can enjoy knowing more about the many varieties they see. The plant varieties include bluebells and asters, coneflowers and peonies, brown-eyed Susan, and native grasses for season-long color and texture. The Pella Garden Club raised funds towards Phase 3. They provided the plants for along the Tuttle Learning Walk and Tuttle Cabin. Historic Pella Trust offers living history field trips for 2nd grade and homeschool students. They spend several hours listening to the stories and doing activities related to the mid-1800s. The Learning Walk will be a great addition for this program. The field trips were canceled because of the pandemic, but an online family version was offered on our website blog page. Canceling turned out to be a blessing because the construction had been delayed due to the weather, and it could be difficult to combine the two. There were spaces designed along the walk to stand out of the way and read the history where the signs were being located. The signs will use QR technology to expand on the information written on the signage. The topics will include information about the area before the Europeans even saw it, the life of the Native American, the tall grass prairies, the grove of native trees, the walnuts, oaks, and breadbud and maple. You will learn about the vast wildlife that flourished here and the fossils, including the massive mammoth. The new purchase treaty allowed homesteads to be built west of Fairfield after May 1 of 1843. Thomas and Nancy Tuttle placed their claim on an area that included downtown Pella. They built this walnut log cabin, and it is still on the original lot. Signage will tell about their farming lifestyle and about the neighbors, the Nosman, Welch, Buffington, and Brown families. In July of 1847, Reverend Moses Post brought a group of 5 Dutchmen to Tuttle Cabin to inquire about the purchase of land for a community they planned to call Pella. Dominie Henry Sculty was the leader and the only one, other than Post, who could speak English. The Tuttles agreed to accept the offer of gold for the land that included the downtown area. In only 5 days, 33 other homesteaders also agreed to sell their properties to Sculty. Dominee Schulte had 800 Dutch followers that were waiting to find a place to start their new community. They were camped in St. Louis while the search party looked for land to settle. They soon traveled up the Mississippi River to Keokuk and through Fairfield to find their new home, Pella, Iowa. The Dutch started up many businesses to help with the new town, such as several general stores, the Joseph Porter sawmill, and the Tomb brick factory. The Civil War broke out and the Dutch became involved. Schulte wrote many letters to his friend, President Lincoln. North Street was renamed Lincoln Street after the assassination, and Schulte grieved the loss of a good friend. Did you ever wonder why the Dutch left Holland? Was it religious freedom? Do you want to learn more about our school and church history? Help us to finish the Tuttle Learning Walk. The impact of industry has always been a Pella's strength. We will discuss the influence of industry in historic Pella, such as the Birkins Wagon Factory and the Pella Drain and Tile. The railroad came to Pella in 1864. This transportation had a big impact on the success and ability to move products in and out of Pella. Before, it often took over a week to get supplies. Between 1882 and 1913, Pella added a fire department, city water, telephone, sewer, and mail. Sunken Garden was a cooling pond for the Vivaldi Brothers power plant in 1889. It was also the location for the very first tulip time in 1935. There are many interesting activities that took place in this beautiful park that has a wooden shoe-shaped pond in the middle. We feel the Tuttle Learning Walk will be a high-interest tourist attraction that will provide a lasting tribute to our Dutch ancestors. I sincerely thank all of the foundations, businesses, and individuals from around the United States who have helped to build the Tuttle Learning Walk. I also want to thank Jim Emmert for his help in making this video about Tuttle Learning Walk. Supporting Historic Pella Trust will finish this project and will help to protect endangered historic properties in Pella. Your contribution can make a difference. May I count on your support for Historic Pella Trust?
Welcome to the Rock House. We took on this project as a family about a year ago, my parents and I, and we decided we were going to transform it and use it as a family home, use it as a rental, just whatever our needs as a growing family may be. So it's going to look a lot different than you may have remembered it. I've had so many people stop by and tell me the stories of how they've lived here or how they've been in this place before. And I'll tell you, it looks night and day different. So even starting out with the kitchen, we stripped everything down basically to nothing. So these are actually the original hardwood floors in the house. When you may have come in here before, you would have noticed as a rental that it was all carpet that needed some love. So we were lucky enough when we pulled this back, this was the original hardwood floor that had never been touched. So we spent quite a bit of time and love restoring these and getting these back to a place where you could walk on them, where you could have a beautiful color and really show off like one of the original pieces of this house. The other thing that you might have noticed is all of the ceiling, you'll notice this woodwork throughout the house is original. And when we started this project, we had quite a little bit of trouble matching some of the original woodwork, and this was something that we looked far and wide for after we had to rip out the wall in the house. Not rip it completely out, I guess, but the foundation of this house has started to shift. So we had Steve Sarek from Oskaloosa come, and we had to push the wall all the way back in, cut out pieces of the wall and pieces of the ceiling to get the house structurally sound again. Because if you remember, there's a big fireplace that used to run here as well. So we took all the fireplaces off of here, re-secured the wall, and then hunted down all the original woodwork, which was not easy, to piece back in to make sure it was original. Now the kitchen, on the other hand, is definitely not original. It needed some updating, so we could have some of the original charm in some pieces of the house, but then have modern amenities, so then you could come in here and use the house however you needed to. So we had Wester Camp Woodworking come in and custom build all these cabinets, because what you'll learn about small spaces, you'll learn that it's not a huge house, is that you have to use your spaces really well. So he came in and did all the open shelving. We made it light and bright and kept it traditional with the subway tile. So in that way we had the contrast and it could feel really big in here. So one thing about little spaces is you can create a lot of space with it. So we put some modern amenities because we want to do something a little different. I think everyone was expecting traditional. So instead we took it a little bit modern in here so it could be fun and it could be warm, it could be nice and bright. This is the wall that gave us so much trouble because the foundation had started to roll away from it. So you would have seen from the outside that quite literally the wall bowed out just to the common eye. So we spent a lot of time trying to piece back together the wall after we had pushed and refastened some of the, what you'd call footers? Sure, yes. And then went ahead and re-drywalled this, but every other wall besides 2 in the house are still the original plaster. So we had a lot of plaster work that we had to patch up within the house and make sure that that was still original. And then we were very careful about making sure that that stayed with its integrity. So we used to have a big chimney here that originally went inside, started outside, went inside and all the way up to the 2nd floor that we had to hand chip out with the bricks so we could safely get them out and then rebuild the wall back up to take all the weight off of it. So originally there was 3 chimneys on this house and now there aren't any. So we've gone through and repatched all those up, and then when we put the new roof on, then covered those spots obviously. One of the things that's my favorite about the house, and that's like special to our family, is we took a lot of our family pieces and put them in the house. So while you may see some modern things, we put in a lot of antiques with the house that are from my parents originally. So you may see things like our TV stand was from my mother's family. We have a little farm bench that my dad hates that's from his farm. And we have several pieces throughout the house that you're gonna see that we brought in with us. So like the front door is from my dad's old Victorian home that they tore down and then he kept. So we redid that and wanted to put it on the house because I originally had just a normal exterior door like a normal house would have. And we wanted to do the extra little touches to make sure that all the historical pieces were still here. Then we still had all the modern living too. So you'll notice when we did the built-ins, we did add a washer and dryer unit to make this space more livable. So we have a full-size washer and dryer stacker that we kind of hid, which if you remember, maybe walk through here, originally the laundry was sitting right in the middle of the living room. So we finagled that in a million different ways. We had a full-size washer and dryer and we added a coffee bar and plenty of space in this little house. You'd be so surprised how with just a little bit of mindful space or little creations or little thinking that you can put stuff and have so much more space to play around with that can be usable and friendly. So not only is it a beautiful historic house, it's something that can be used to live in or come and stay in for short periods of times or long periods of time. One of my favorite places that we redid that maybe needed the most help was the bathroom. So the bathroom used to be a light blue baby color, if you used to remember it, with a big vanity. It had rotted ceilings just because it had never had a ventilation put into it. And really one of the coolest pieces of the bathroom is the exterior wall that's in the bathroom. So you may have noticed this addition of the bathroom was added several years after the house was built. And so the really cool piece is when they added this on, it still has the exterior wall within the bathroom. We had that retuck pointed, which we were thrilled about, the same exact way that this house would have been built, which we are excited to get that going here in the spring to have the entire outside of the cottage redone. So the bathroom we went through and we made sure all of it was going to last for a long time. We kept the original tub and we went through and tiled the entire bathroom, that traditional subway, and created a lot more space. So you'd be surprised in just a small area how usable and livable it really is. And then adding those antique boxes that we've had in our family for a while that have the name Douglas on them that we've collected from different areas to help bring in that touch of vintage as well. This turned out to be one of my favorite spaces. This is what we call like the grandkids room. This loft used to feel a lot different, and so we got really thoughtful about how do we create this, make this a really livable space and make this really friendly and cozy, whereas before it might have felt a little cold up here, right? So we redid the floors up here that had been here, oh man, as long as this addition had been put on here. They had never been redone. That was a labor of love. And then you'll notice that we actually took space out of this room because originally the pitches came to the end and it was bright, bright green in here. Then you would have remembered that chimney came all the way up and all the way out. So when we did this, we wanted to feel like this was original. We didn't want to just put things in here that felt like we had thrown the house together. So we added some built-ins. We added a ton of storage solutions so that anyone that ever needed to stay up here could have as much space as they possibly needed, with nice deep drawers that come in and out. Then what we went ahead and did was built in this wall on the other side, which is where we house 2 twin beds. So this entire piece was built in. We like to thank our handyman, Brian Pfeiffer, all the time, because anything pretty you see, he's the one that created it. So up here, there's tons of space, especially for kids, right? If you're a little bit smaller, to come up and feel really comfy and cozy. We did some fun little add-ons, like adding lights to the bed so you can come in and have your own little nook. Adding the bookcases so then it can feel nice and cozy, not like an afterthought, but like these things had always originally been here. So we added lights up here. There was no lights up in this area at all. We added some nice white bright trim and then added all the drawers, and I made this space really enjoyable and then really fun for kids. So this is the original house. You notice the stone cottage. There were 2 rooms to the stone cottage. This was the original living quarters, so that tells you how much times have changed. Now it fits a king-size bed, and this is your master bedroom, right? So this master bedroom is super special to me. We didn't do a ton of work in this space. We redid the floors, we touched up the trim, and we gave it a lot of love. But everything in here is pretty original to what it used to look like. One of my favorite pieces is the built-in that's behind the bed, because my grandpa, who had passed away, used to collect antique bottles. So that was really cool to incorporate his pieces in there, and he had a bunch of old cigar boxes that we got to use. One of the other things is we got to put one of my mom's pieces in here, where she had gotten from her uncle when he was in World War II, had brought her back when she was a little girl, some traditional outfits that she got to use and wear as a little girl. So that's been really special to our family. Or even as far as like the old telephone that was in my family home for as long as I've been alive. So we liked adding the little pieces throughout the space to make this feel really big, right? You have a king-size bed in this small house, which gives it so much more space, and then it feels so much more open. One of my other favorite pieces is, you'll notice in the corner, there was a clockmaker back in Pella who had 3 daughters, and one of them had passed away. And so we got to have her old grandfather clock, which we featured in the master bedroom. And that was pretty special to us. It still works fine and dandy, and it will ding, I swear, every 15 minutes if you let it. And then some of our old ammunition boxes that we've carried around throughout the years that my mom has had that I thought were super special. So I really enjoyed going around to local places to help decorate this little small rock house. One of my favorite places that I've really enjoyed has been the fair trade store in town called Work of Our Hands. So all the artisans' baskets were fair trade, and they had provided all those for us. So I loved going there, and Blush and Simple Treasure did a beautiful job of helping us out as well to make this place feel a little bit more warm and cozy.
The doors, they came out of our old farmhouse that I grew up in. That had been in my family. We tore the house down in 1980, and we saved the doors, and they had the frosted glass in them. I said, I always wanted a project that I could reuse them. So, and they had about 30 coats of paint. Well, I know they had at least 30 coats of paint, because I put about 15 or 16 of them on there at least, because we had to repaint it every summer. And it had the old-time doorbell ringers in it. The garden shed set out here, so when I had a little skid loader here, or a little track hoe here, so Katie and Kathy thought it'd look a lot better in that corner of the yard. I didn't know if it'd make it because it was pretty tough shape, but we took it over there, made it fine. We stripped all the siding off, resheeted it, and re-sided it. I added 3 windows onto the garden shed. We stripped the siding off of and I made the doors out of cedar. Then on the garage, we're actually going to make that a little gym, is the plan. We haven't got it done yet. So we took all the old masonite siding off. We had Pella windows make us some architect. We had to buy architect windows, and they custom made them so it matched the windows on the front with the one bar. So we put new windows in the top, and we put 2 in the sides, and I redid the old garage door here a few weeks ago to try to make it match the other doors. The inside of the garage, we're making a gym. We got the flooring in, and now we just got to finish up wiring it, and then we're going to insulate it. We did air conditioning, and we're planning on heating it.
Some history behind the Rock House. This unique home is believed to be one of the 7 or 8 oldest remaining buildings in Pella. It was constructed in 1856 by 37-year-old Dirk Van Loon. Dirk, along with his wife Gertje and daughter Christina, had immigrated to Pella earlier that year. Stone houses have always been extremely rare in Pella. Most early homes were constructed either of brick or native wood, but Van Loon had been trained as a stonemason in the Netherlands. He used his construction skills to fashion limestone, which he may have personally quarried by hand, into their home. The wooden addition on the rear of the home was added in the late 1850s when the Van Loon's son, Henry, was born. In Pella, Dirk continued working as a stonemason, laying the foundations for many local homes. Dirk was also an accomplished cornet player, having played in the Royal Dutch Navy Band. Dirk formed Pella's first musical band, which played at the Iowa State Fair, held at that time in Oskaloosa, where the band captured first place as the best band in Iowa. After his wife passed away, Dirk and his daughter moved to Kansas in 1876. The Van Loons may be gone, but fortunately, their handiwork still remains.